Welcome to Photoshop for Digital Photographers. Brought to you by the Digital Photography Connection. And now, here's your host, Michael Rather.
In this week's tutorial, we're going to be looking at ways to extract objects out of your images that we can't do by using the selection tools found inside of Photoshop. You can see the image here on screen that would be almost impossible to use these selection tools in order to select the tree and extract it out of the image. But today we're going to use a little bit different technique. Today we're going to be going into the channels palette and looking how to do some of these complex extractions via the channels palette. So what we want to do is bring the channels palette into view. Now I have my channels palette here grouped with my layers palette, but if you don't happen to see your channels palette, just go up to the Windows menu there and click on channels, and that'll bring up your channels palette. Now we're going to be looking at the composite view here of the channel, but we can also look at the individual colored channels. We can look at the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. And what we want to do is we want to decide which channel is going to give us the most contrast in our image. So I'll start once again at the red, and you can see, well, there is some contrast between the very white sky and the tree. The green, well, things are kind of blending a little bit closer together. I don't have quite as much differentiation between the shadows and highlights. But once we click on the blue channel, now I'm starting to see quite a bit more contrast than I saw in any of the other channels. And once you've decided which channel is going to give you the most contrast, what you want to do is duplicate that channel. And I'm going to do that by clicking and holding my mouse down and dragging it right down here at the very bottom on the Create a New Channel icon. And now you'll see that we've got a copy of our blue channel showing. The next thing that we want to do is we want to accentuate this contrast of this blue copy, this blue channel copy that we created. So I'm going to come up to the image menu and I'm going to drop down to adjustments and I'm going to go ahead and select curves. And the curves dialog box is going to come up. And this represents, of course, the way I've got it set up here is I've got my shadows to the left and my highlights to the right. And what I want to do is I'm going to grab in the shadow area. You can see that there's a lot of pixels that fall into this shade of dark pixels. I'm going to grab and drag that down just a little bit to further darken those pixels, and then I might slightly bring this up just a little bit to brighten and lighten some of the lighter pixels. And if we click our preview box on or off, you can see that we've done a better job in being able to define more of the black areas and the white areas. Actually, I'm going to even make it a little bit darker here. And I'll go ahead and say OK. Now, once I've got this adjustment made via the curves dialog box, I'm going to come back to the image menu item. I'm going to go to adjustments, and this time I'm going to head over to levels, and I'm going to make some further adjustments using the levels dialog box. And as I slide this black slider over, you can see that I'm starting to even make more definition. Now you want to be careful you don't go too far with this or you'll start losing some of the details of the edges of this tree. But you want to do as best you can as far as to darken up some of those areas. You can work a little bit with the midtones here to bring back some of that detail, and also you can use your white slider to bring some of those areas back in. But we're going to take care of some of the areas that we missed by using our paintbrush here in just a moment. So once I have those selections made and I've got my curves and levels adjusted the way that I want, so I've got the maximum contrast going for this blue channel, I'm going to click and say OK. Now the next step is to go in and make some fine-tuning adjustments. I'm going to grab my zoom tool here and I'm just going to zoom into some of the areas and start panning around to see what areas I might want to touch up with my brush. And I'll come to my palette here and grab my brush and make sure that I'm painting on black, and then I can come in and start making some slight adjustments in the image to darken some of these areas up. Now, as you'll remember, this tree had some areas where the sky was shining behind it. So you don't want to cover those up with black. You just want to catch maybe some of these grayed areas here just a little bit to get them dark as well. But I think we've got things looking pretty well. Now we'll also come to the bottom. I'm going to zoom out here for just a moment, and let's look here at the bottom of our image, because this I want to kind of black out as well. So I'm going to once again grab my black brush. I'll go ahead and expand it just a little bit by using my right bracket key, and then with black at 100% opacity, I'm going to just come in and start painting. Now I want to use a fairly hard brush. I don't want those edges to bleed over, so I'm going to move it up quite a ways, and I'm just going to come in and paint this out. Now, next, we're going to zoom in, on the tree trunk. Now, I made a little bit of a mistake. I overextended the boundaries, but you can fix that easily. I'm going to hit the X key on the keyboard so that I'm now painting with white, and I'm just going to trail right over those areas right there that I overshot. And I'll hit the X key once again to come in and fix this. Now I'm going to zoom into the tree trunk here for a moment, because you can see some of these areas that aren't completely black. And this is how we're going to take care of those. With the brush tool selected, I'm going to come up here to the top menu bar, and I'm going to select overlay mode, because what overlay mode is going to do is where I first click, it's going to pick up that range of color, and it's going to make sure that it takes anything that's not pure white and turn it into black. So any of these gray areas here will be turning to black, but if I happen to spill over to the white, it's not going to do anything, because once it's pure white, it's actually not going to paint on that. So I'll click once, and then I'll drag it, and I'm coming up here, and now I'm just trimming some of these areas inside the image. Now notice if I paint over here, again, nothing in black is being painted because I've got that overlay mode selected. And of course I can pan through the image and correct things and come in. Now I don't want these edges. These are the grass blades that are showing here. And of course some of those we want to actually have showing through to our completed extraction. So I'm not going to grab those. I'm just going to make some of these adjustments in the areas that should be pure black. And so I'm going to go ahead and let's bring this all back into full view here. And now we've got a pretty good selection going on. So what we want to do is we want to select the black areas that we've already masked out. And there is a little selection tool down here as far as loading the selection. And if I click on that, that's going to load the selection. But what it's actually loading is the white areas, not the black areas. Just the opposite of what we want. So I'm going to come up to the select menu, and I'm going to select inverse. Now obviously you can see the keyboard shortcut, and you can use that if you want to use the keyboard, or you can just come up to the select menu here. And when you do, now you can see all of the black areas of the image have been selected. So once you have your selection, I'm going to click back on the RGB channel, and I'm going to go back to the layers palette. Now this layer is locked, so you have a choice. You can double click on the layer to unlock it, or you can just drag copy the layer and turn that background layer off. And we're going to make sure that now that we're selected on the background copy, and I'm just going to click down here in the bottom of the layers palette on the add layer mask icon. And when I do, that's automatically going to build the layer mask for me. And now you can see we've extracted this very difficult tree from its background. And now we can drag it into another image if we like. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing next. So what I first want to do is get out of full screen mode. I'm going to hit the F key twice on my keyboard, and I'm going to be out of the full screen mode. And here is an image that we're going to go ahead and drop that tree into. I'm just going to fill this blank area right here. So I'm going to come back to this image, and let me bring my layers palette back into view for a moment, because we are on this background layer here. And I want to grab the move tool. Now, once again, I'm working in Photoshop CS4, and you can only do this drag and drop method in CS4. If you happen to be using Photoshop CS3, you can actually just drag the layer out of the layers palette to the new image, but I'm going to be using the CS4 method, which is actually clicking on the image, not on the layer in the layers palette, dragging it up and hovering it over the image that I want to drop it on. And then I'm going to go ahead and click and release, and now the tree is going to appear. Now here's the grass down here in the area, and I don't want that to show, and so I'm just going to move it down here below. And you can see that's done a pretty doggone good job of selecting that tree and then moving it into this other image. Now I picked this image with the white background because it was easiest to show you exactly how to extract that image. But if you happen to be fortunate enough to go ahead and shoot an image where you've just got the bright white sky behind it, if it happens to be a cloudy day, there actually is a shortcut to everything that we've just done. So let me show you what that shortcut is. I'm going to come over to this image and I'm going to turn that off, that background layer that we just brought over. And I'm going to turn the extracted layer off. I'm going to go ahead and double click on the background just so that I can unlock it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, drag, and bring this original image right over here with the white sky. Now, you aren't always going to be able to shoot with a cloudy sky, and that's the reason why I wanted to show you this tutorial with the white sky, but you can use blend modes when you're able to get such a good white background going. All I need to do is we want to darken the image, and when we darken the image, it's going to go ahead and take away all of those white pixels that were back there. So if you happen to be fortunate enough to be able to shoot on a cloudy day where you don't have a lot of variation in the color of the clouds, you'll be able to take objects just like we see here on the screen, and just by using a blend mode, be able to extract them immediately onto your other photos. And if you'd like to quickly advance your Photoshop skills, you might want to consider purchasing our 2008 remastered podcast. We've got 53 tutorials with over 9 hours of instruction of showing you techniques for photographers for Photoshop. You can get there by going to our website at www.tdpconnection.com and then just clicking on the store tab. And again, that was our 2008 podcast. Well, that concludes our tutorial for today. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again next week.